Carol Pruitt had exactly 43 minutes to become someone she no longer remembered how to be. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror in her small apartment on the east side of Columbus, Ohio, staring at the woman looking back at her with the particular kind of exhaustion that no amount of concealer could fully hide. The overhead light buzzed faintly, the way it always did after 8 o'clock, and somewhere down the hall her 7-year-old daughter Penny was arguing with the television about the rules of a game show she didn't quite understand. The sound was warm and familiar, and for a moment Carol just closed her eyes and let it fill the space around her like something she could hold on to. "You're going on a date," she whispered to her reflection, "a real one, with a real person." The words felt foreign in her mouth. Not wrong. Exactly. Just unused. Like a language she had once been fluent in, and had slowly, quietly forgotten over the course of 3 years of early mornings, packed lunches, parent-teacher conferences attended alone, and Friday nights that ended before 9 with a novel she was too tired to read. She was 31 years old. She wore a beige sweater more often than not. She owned one good pair of black slacks, and a watch her mother had given her when she graduated from nursing school. And those were the things she had on right now, because this was the nicest version of herself she could put together on a Tuesday evening with 43 minutes and a babysitter who charged by the hour. Her friend Dana had arranged this. Dana, who was relentless and well-meaning and absolutely impossible to say no to, had called her 3 weeks ago with what she described as a very casual, very low-pressure, completely harmless blind date, and had not stopped following up since. Carol had said no twice. She had said maybe once. She had said fine in a moment of weakness during a 12-hour nursing shift when she was running on coffee and stubbornness, and Dana had immediately confirmed everything before Carol could take it back. "His name is Grant," Dana had told her. "He's a friend of Marcus's. He's kind, he's successful, and he specifically asked to meet someone real." Those were his words, Carol. Someone real. Carol hadn't asked what that meant. She was too tired. She just wrote down the name of the restaurant, Hartwell's, a quiet place on the north side of the city she'd never been to, but had passed a dozen times, and always assumed was for other people. And she told herself she would cancel by Sunday. She hadn't cancelled. Now she smoothed her sweater, picked up her purse, and walked down the hall to where her babysitter, a college sophomore named Bree, was already settled on the couch with Penny tucked under her arm, both of them fully absorbed in the game show. "Mommy, that man just won a refrigerator," Penny announced without looking up. "That's wonderful, baby. Can we win a refrigerator?" "We have a refrigerator. Ours makes that noise." "I know." Carol kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and something slightly crayon adjacent. "I'll be back by 10. 9:30 if this goes the way I think it will." Bree looked up with the bright, slightly pitying expression of someone 20 years old, watching a 31-year-old leave the house looking uncertain. "You look great, Carol." "I look like a nurse going to dinner," Carol said, but she smiled anyway. The restaurant was a 20-minute drive. She took the long way without meaning to, circling the park on 4th Street, because the traffic light at the intersection had always been slow, and she'd never quite broken the habit of avoiding it, even now, when she wasn't in a hurry. The city was settling into its evening rhythm around her. People walking dogs, a couple arguing quietly on a stoop, a food truck with a line 3 people deep. Columbus in October had a particular smell to it, something between cold pavement and fallen leaves and the exhaust from the highway 2 miles west, and she had always found it oddly comforting, this city that wasn't glamorous, but was entirely stubbornly itself. She pulled into the parking lot at Hartwell's at 7 minutes past 7 and sat in her car for 90 seconds. Someone real. That was what he'd asked for. She wondered what that said about the people he usually met. She wondered what it said about her, that the phrase had stayed with her for 3 weeks. Inside, the restaurant was warm and unhurried, the kind of place where the lighting was low enough to be forgiving, and the tables were spaced far enough apart that conversations could breathe. A hostess led her to a corner table near a window that looked out over a small courtyard lit with string lights, and Carol had just settled into her chair and set her purse on the seat beside her when she looked up and saw him walking toward her from across the room. She recognized the type before she recognized the person, The particular kind of man who moves through a public space with the quiet, unstudied confidence of someone who has never once had to wonder whether he belonged in the room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit with the top button of his shirt open in a way that suggested the tie had been removed recently and deliberately. His hair was dark and pushed back from his face, and he had the kind of jaw that looked like it had been constructed with a specific purpose in mind. He was objectively extraordinarily good-looking, and Carol felt the particular kind of panic that strikes a woman wearing a beige sweater when she suddenly realizes she is underdressed for her own evening. He saw her. He didn't hesitate. He walked directly to the table, extended his hand, and said, "Carol, I'm Grant Mercer. I'm sorry if I kept you waiting." His voice was lower than she expected. Quieter. There was no performance in it. "You didn't," she said. "I was early." A pause. 7 minutes late, actually, but that's still early for me. Something shifted at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but the shape of one beginning. He sat down across from her, and in the warm light of the restaurant, Carol could see that he was older than the easy confidence suggested. There were fine lines around his eyes, and something in his expression that read less like ease and more like a man who had learned to wear ease as a kind of protection. He was watching her with a directness she wasn't used to, the sort of attention that didn't wander toward his phone or the room or anything else, and it made her feel simultaneously seen and slightly off balance, the way you feel when someone adjusts the focus of a lens you didn't know was blurry. "Dana told me you're a nurse, Am," he said. "Pediatric unit. 6 years." She picked up the menu, mostly for something to do with her hands. "She told me you're in real estate. Among other things." He said it without elaboration, and she got the sense that elaboration was available if she wanted it and that he was simply waiting to find out whether she did. She looked up from the menu. "What does among other things mean exactly?" He met her eyes. "It means I own some buildings, some companies, some things I probably have too many of and don't use enough." Another almost smile. "It's not as interesting as it sounds." It sounds like something someone says when it is exactly as interesting as it sounds and they're testing to see if you'll push back. This time the smile arrived fully, and it changed his face in a way that was difficult to look away from. It made him look briefly like someone who was genuinely surprised by something and genuinely pleased about it. "Fair enough," he said. The waiter came. They ordered. The courtyard outside the window glowed gold through the glass, and the restaurant hummed softly around them with other people's conversations, and Carol settled back slightly in her chair and thought, "Okay, this is fine, this is just two people having dinner." And then Grant Mercer set down his water glass, looked at her across the table, and said the one thing she hadn't expected anyone to say to her in 3 years. "So," he said quietly, "how are you actually doing? Not what do you do or where are you from or tell me about yourself, the standard safe geography of a first date, just that. How are you actually doing?" With the weight of the word actually sitting right in the middle of it, like he meant it to land exactly where it did. Carol opened her mouth, closed it, felt something tighten unexpectedly in her chest. She had no idea what she was about to say. Carol had a rehearsed answer for most first date questions. She had been working on it quietly, unconsciously, during the 3 weeks between Dana's phone call and this Tuesday evening. A kind of internal script that sounded honest, without being vulnerable, warm without being needy, open without being the sort of open that made people lean back slightly in their chairs and reassess the evening. She had it ready. It involved something about loving her job, something brief and cheerful about Penny, and a pivot toward asking about him before anything got too personal. She didn't use it. "Honestly?" she said. The word came out smaller than she intended. "I don't remember the last time someone asked me that and actually wanted an answer." Grant didn't move. He didn't fill the silence with reassurance or nervous laughter. He just waited, his hands folded loosely on the table. And the patience in his posture was so complete and so unhurried that it felt almost physical, like a door held open with no sign of impatience about whether or not you chose to walk through it. So she did. "I'm tired," she said, not in a bad way necessarily. "Just Tired in the way that you get when every single day has 30 things in it, and 29 of them are for someone else, and the one that's for you is usually just remembering to drink enough water. She paused. That sounds worse than I meant it to. It sounds honest, he said. I have a daughter.